Fareed Zakaria, GPS, seen in Sunday morning 10 Eastern and Pacific.
The big news this week is, of course, the Wikileaks. They've been called a historian's dream and a diplomat's nightmare, and everyone is convinced that it is just a disaster for the United States. So let me offer a modest dissent. First, the cables don't show the United States doing anything duplicitous or underhand or scandalous. Now remember, in the 1960s and 70s, America was often engaged in operations and policies that were clandestine and were actually the opposite of its stated foreign policy. But now, in these cables, there are no stories of coups, attempted assassinations, or closet deals. Washington's secret diplomacy is actually remarkably consistent with its public diplomacy on Iran, on North Korea, on all kinds of issues. Now, I also have to confess that the level and quality of analysis in these cables is a lot better than I would have guessed. American diplomats come across as sharp, well-informed, and lucid with their pens or their computer keyboards. The big substantive revelation is that Arab regimes worry a lot more about Iran than they say so publicly. And they have been urging Washington to do something about Iran, including using military force. Now, that's mighty embarrassing for Arab governments that have been lying to their people, in a sense. But is it so bad for the United States? After all, it confirms the Central American argument about Iran's nuclear program, that it is destabilizing the region and is feared not just by the United States or Israel, but by all Arab countries. You might have noticed that the man most furious about these leaks is Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Iran's president says that these cables were actually leaked by Washington to weaken Iran. And I can see why he would think this. The cables make clear that far from being loved in the region, as he often claims, he is feared and despised by Arab leaders. Of course, it would probably have been better off if all of this had stayed private. But reading through the sum total of this data dump, I came away more impressed and reassured by the way Washington works, or at least the State Department, than I was before.
Can I get with 2.3 trillion? When does a citizen become a civilian? When did the heroes morph into the villains? How can 2 planes powderize 3 buildings? These are questions that could get you murked, politically, socially, physically put into the dirt. Many swear that there's some kind of conflict of interest within. The conflict depends upon what you're interested in. You can chant 9/11 was an inside job all day until you say the Mossad and pay closer attention to Flight 175 and the odd cylindrical pod beneath the fuselage. Then it's 2 plus 2 level addition after you factor in the flight termination systems and flashback to the cash the good rabbi stole, September 10th style, right down the rabbit hole. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? You can get unlimited corporate news. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? You can have any mercenaries you choose. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? You can steal a couple million souls. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? You can get everything under control. The missile they hit the Pentagon with was not an act of randomness. It murdered accountants, bookkeepers, and budget analysts. That side of the building was retrofitted prior to this to withstand bomb blast and nicknamed the catcher's mitt. If that don't give you some kind of clue why they blew the mortar, you should probably take some medication for your new disorder. If buildings are burning, don't ever trust a news reporter with 267 stories of gruesome slaughter. Don't ever mention Dov Zakim and trillions stolen, much less missile-equipped Boeings he been remote controlling. With System Planning Corporation International, the folks to see if you got some buildings you'd like to crash into. But that's impossible without the proper capital. That's why I'm asking you what you would do with unimaginable wealth. So much money you can't delve in it, enough to buy 5 presidents and 12 senates. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? You can get unlimited corporate news. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? You can have any mercenaries you choose. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? You can steal a couple million souls. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? You can get everything under control. What can I get?
But that's what we've got so far. 2 to 3 people in custody right now, found with a van filled with explosives.
All right, well understood. Deborah, where are you tonight?
And word late tonight that 2 suspects are in FBI custody
after a truckload of explosives was discovered around the George Washington Bridge. That bridge links New York to New Jersey over the Hudson River. Whether the discovery of those explosives has anything to do with other events of the day is unclear, but the FBI has 2 suspects in hand, said the truck load of explosives, enough explosives were in the truck to do great damage to the George Washington Bridge. But they arrested the 2 suspects and they're questioning them as we speak.
And all of a sudden, down there, I see this van parked. And I see 3 guys on top of the van. And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
We had received an all-points bulletin, and I just happened to see the van and, you know, hollered over to my lieutenant. You know, I think that could be the van. We checked it out, and it was. You know, we were all on edge, obviously, so I really wasn't looking to make friends with these people, and neither were the officers that I were with. Once we started talking to them, you know, they were pretty much like, hey, you know, we're not against you, we're with you.
And at that point we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event. Our purpose was to document the event.
I was watching the towers, and though I wasn't the closest, I saw them crumble to the earth like they were full of explosives. And they thought nobody noticed the news report that they did about the bombs planted on the George Washington Bridge. 4 non-Arabs arrested during the emergency, and then it disappeared from the news permanently. They dubbed the tape of Osama, and they said it was proof. Jealous of our freedom, I can't believe you bought that excuse. Rocking a motherfucking flag don't make you a hero. Word to ground zero, the devil crept into heaven, God overslept on the 7th. The new world order was born on September 11th. Father, forgive them, for they don't know right from wrong. The truth is set you free, written down in a song. And the song has the cause of death written in code. The word of God brought to light that'll save your soul. Save your soul, motherfucker, save your soul. And just so conservatives don't take it to heart, I don't think Bush did it, cause he isn't that smart.
It has been more than 16 years since a civilian working for the Navy was charged with passing secrets to Israel. Jonathan Pollard pled guilty to conspiracy to commit espionage and is serving a life sentence. At first, Israeli leaders claimed Pollard was part of a rogue operation, but later took responsibility for his work. Now, Fox News has learned some U.S. investigators believe that there are Israelis again very much engaged in spying in and on the U.S., who may have known things they didn't tell us before September 11th. Fox News correspondent Carl Cameron has details in the first of a 4-part series.
Since September 11th, more than 60 Israelis have been arrested or detained, either under the new Patriot anti-terrorism law or for immigration violations. A handful of active Israeli military were among those detained, according to investigators, who say some of the detainees also failed polygraph questions when asked about alleged surveillance activities against and in the United States. There is no indication that the Israelis were involved in the 9/11 attacks, but investigators suspect that the Israelis may have gathered intelligence about the attacks in advance and not shared it. A highly placed investigator said there are, quote, tie-ins, but when asked for details, he flatly refused to describe them, saying, quote, evidence linking these Israelis to 911 is classified. I cannot tell you about evidence that has been gathered. It's classified information.
9/11 Truth Movement people, by and large, are some of the best people you'll ever meet. They're people with courage. They're people with unusually high intelligence. And you know, if they end up throwing us in FEMA camps, at least I'll be on the side of the barbed wire with the interesting people, the kind of people that I would like to talk to and be friends with.
Why do people from the Truth Movement keep getting called psychotic and all other names for what they believe?
Well, that's because they don't have any evidence to try to disprove what we say. So rather than arguing the evidence with us, they have to attack the messenger. And then they say, you're crazy. You know, what kind of argument is that?
Kevin Barrett, thank you for your time with us today.
Thank you so much, Anastasia.
intelligence. Oh, how these people judge. You think that I don't know, but I know. You think that we don't know, but we know.
Screwed in 7 terrorism, was now no thermite terrorism. We screwed in 7 terrorism, was now no thermite terrorism.
And the Twin Towers fell and it was controlled demolition. There was no terrorism, it's not that.
If you wish to bring anybody who's ever watched a building being demolished on purpose knows that if you're going to do this, you have to get at the under infrastructure of a building and bring it down.
First, let the technical truths emerge. Then, if necessary, cope with the inevitable conspiracy and other questions. Buildings tend to fall over. They don't fall straight down through the path of greatest resistance. Buildings tend to fall over. This is a controlled demolition. Typically, a tall building like this is demolished by placing thousands of cutter charges throughout the columns and beams, detonating them in a very precise order. This is a controlled demolition. Synchronistically timed, floor by floor, detonating them in a very precise order. This is a controlled demolition. Synchronistically timed, floor by floor. This is a controlled demolition. So the result is an implosion. This is a controlled demolition. So the result is an implosion. This is a controlled demolition. We have straight down symmetrical collapse into its own footprint. This is a controlled demolition. This is what a high-rise looks like when it's being demolished with explosives. This is a controlled demolition. We have straight down symmetrical collapse into its own footprint. This is a controlled demolition. This is a controlled demolition. Synchronistically timed, floor by floor. This is a controlled demolition. So the result is an implosion. This is a controlled demolition. This is what a high-rise looks like when it's being demolished with explosives. This is a controlled demolition. This is a controlled demolition. This is what a high-rise looks like when it's being demolished with explosives. This is a controlled demolition. This is a controlled demolition. This is a controlled demolition. So the result is an implosion. This is a controlled demolition. We have straight down symmetrical collapse into its own footprint. This is a controlled demolition. Fires affect buildings quite differently than controlled demolition. Typically, a tall building like this is demolished by placing thousands of cutter charges throughout the columns and beams. First, let the technical truths emerge. Then, if necessary, cope with the inevitable conspiracy and other questions.
Insulting my intelligence. Oh, how these people judge. You think that I don't know, but I know. You think that we don't know, but we know.
Screwed in 7 terrorism, was now no thermite terrorism. We screwed in 7 terrorism, was now no thermite terrorism.
And the Twin Towers fell and it was controlled demolition. There was no terrorism, it's not that.